Hey everyone, welcome back to Cincinnati Zoo Tales. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thanks to everyone for tuning in for yet another episode. Jenna, I might not be ready for it, but it's your favorite time of year. It's spooky season.
Finally. Actually, it feels like we just did this. I feel like we just recorded these for last year.
Time's flying by right now, that's for sure. But it is officially spooky season. To celebrate spooky season here at the zoo, we're going to talk about some animals that might have a stigma of being spooky, but in reality are not so spooky at all. We love all of our animals here, and we're trying to debunk some myths and kind of go against the grain why these animals are considered spooky, but they're really not. To talk to us today, we're being joined by Carrie-Ann Bolerjack. Carrie-Ann is an amazing trainer for our Wings of Wonder show, and she's joined us before, so we clearly weren't spooky enough to scare her off. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Definitely.
I think it's going to be a really distracted episode.
For sure.
Carrie-Ann brought some friends with her. There are 8 rats right now, and I am so excited. We've been giggling for the longest time. 15 minutes I think we spent giggling about these rats before we were able to get started.
Yeah, they're very distracting in the best way.
So a lot of people do find rats to be creepy or spooky, or they just get nervous when they see them or don't want to see them around, but they are bringing me a lot of joy right now. So we want to focus this episode on pointing out all the reasons that rats should not be considered spooky. But Carrie-Ann, just give us a brief overview of how you became a bird trainer, how you got to where you are today, and then we want you to tell us all about these rats.
For sure. So I'm Cincinnati born and raised. And I've watched the bird show since I was a little kid. So I've always really liked birds, obviously like animals in general, like the most of us here. But I started in Wild Encounters here in 2015 and kind of bounced around to a couple other places, including our animal ambassador team before I ended up in bird show. And if you would have told me that I would have had a small army of rats in the bird show on purpose, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I remember seeing them as a kid, but even back then, I remember they just kind of did this cute little A to B run routine, and I thought it was really neat. But now that I've been down here for a few years and through a few generations of rats, it has been amazing training them because they are so smart, and a lot of people don't realize how smart they are. So they're kind of, I think, almost all of our favorite part of the show, or at least favorite part of the encounters, when we get to bring them out for people to see them up close.
They're definitely the cuddliest, right?
They
have to be.
So sweet.
Yes, we do spend a fair amount of time with them. Unlike birds who may not always want to be around people, these rats are incredibly social. They spend so much time with us, and we spend so much time with them. If we have a free hand, we probably have a rat in it.
So. They've joined us at a few all animal department meetings and such, so we've gotten to meet them a few times, and it's never any less exciting. I know that people might be wondering, what do they do in the bird show? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so this year they run a specific kind of pattern that we taught them to run along the back of our backdrop on our stage. So there's a vine. It's actually kind of a challenging run because they have to run up a vertical vine 5 or 6 feet. And then they kind of go down and back around. And there's a little audio cue that they get with that. So they hear this squeaking on their crate, and they know that that is where they're supposed to go.
Oh.
So they do that. But then we also take them individually and do a lot of training. With our seasonals, interns, or even us, we'll practice training things like stationing, or even retrieving things, anything like that. So they work really well as a group, but it's nice because it's also really easy to separate them individually and work on them one-on-one with behaviors. And they're usually pretty quick learners, so it's really fun to work with them.
I was wondering, how did you teach them to climb vertically? You can't set a tree and have them go up, or did you smear peanut butter?
Not exactly. That probably would have kept them on the vine for a while. The rats are naturally really good climbers anyway, so it's something that they're naturally able to do. So with these guys, we actually trained their running path backwards because the vine's the hardest part, so we kind of saved that for last. So we started with them just learning to jump in the crate and then getting them further and further back from that crate till they couldn't see it, and that's kind of the turning point is they have to listen for the cue. Instead of just seeing a crate, they know what's in it. So we just kind of worked backwards, and yeah, there's not much middle ground with the vine. What we did is we gave them the option to run off our arm halfway up the vine and then go, out, and then eventually just brought it all the way down. And once they knew the path, they are very confident climbers. So they did a great job. And that's something that we keep an eye on with these guys. They unfortunately don't live very long, so as they age, they're not as as spunky as some of their younger sisters. So one of our rats, actually, we retired from the show. Her name's Mama Pickle. Everybody loves Mama Pickle. So she still comes out for meet and greets. We just don't ask her to do the as hard physical runs anymore. But she is a little superstar. Everybody loves her.
Well, on that note, will you tell us all about the ones that we have? Their names, ages, if you can remember. We don't judge you if you can't. And a little bit about them if they have their own personality quirks.
Oh, they sure do. So Mama Pickle, who's this little lady right here, and then Kiki, who I think is snuggled up with some of her sisters right now. Those are our oldest two. So they're about 2 years, 4 months old, 5 months old, somewhere right in there. And then our next set is Fantasia, Pixie, and anybody else in that set? Is it just those two? I think it's just those two in that set. So those two are a set of sisters as well. They're about 1.5 years old. And then we have Denise, Luscious, Empanada, and Lil Chetta. They are our last generation currently. They're our youngest, so they're just over 1 year right now. They do have their own personalities and their own quirks. They are all completely different. They love spending time with us, but like, for example, Kiki, she's the best shoulder rat ever. She just gets up on a shoulder and she sits. That's where she stays. You could probably live your entire life and she would stay right there. So she is super sweet. I mean, there's not a scary hair on her body. She is adorable. Mama Pickle, same thing. If there's food involved, she's in. She's a great snuggler. And then these two right here, Luscious and Empanada, they were kind of the more challenging ones to work with. So we actually got them a little bit older than we do some of our other rats. They're about 5 months old. And for an animal that lives like 2 or 3 years, that's significantly into their adolescence, I guess we could say. So they were a little trickier. It took a little longer for them to warm up. But now, as you can see, they're very comfortable around people. So they all have their own personalities, and we try to make sure that like what we're asking is a good fit for them. And luckily, they all love food and they all love running, so it worked out.
How did you guys come up with the names? These are the best names for rats I've ever heard.
Right. So we try to come up with names that people will remember, because it's not every day you get to come to the zoo and meet a rat, much less on purpose. So we try to come up with things that we think people will remember. So typically we try to pick some sillier names or things that, you know, are just more memorable for people. So we all vote on the names. We all kind of put in a list, and then we all vote to narrow it down. And then we kind of have to see whose personality fits what name.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how they got their names. Everybody gets a vote in.
I hope you'll just accept my apology now. I am really distracted, but I wanted to ask you, because you might have said, and I may not have been paying attention, are they all females?
They are all
And
girls.
is there a reason for that?
There is. So when we decided to introduce rats back in the program, we had a little break after 2020 and trying to figure out what we were going to do with our rats, because our last generation had finally passed away, unfortunately. But when we brought them in, we kind of decided either males or females, and I've worked with both. I typically prefer the girls. The boys are great too, but the girls seem to get along, and what we do with these rats, since they don't live very long, is we kind of set up a multi-generational system, so no rats are ever by themselves, because they're really social. So, you know, as the older girls get up there, we have younger girls who come in. So again, we always have a nice little mischief of rats. Is
that what a group of rats is
group
called?
of rats is a mischief, yeah.
Learn something new every day. That's
I love
a fun
it.
one.
It's the best. So that's kind of how we organize it that way. And just in my experience, the girls are a little bit easier to mesh together than the boys.
Interesting.
So just to keep it that way makes it nice and easy. Also, if we had boys and girls, we'd probably have like 1 million rats and no time.
That might be something we need to talk about today on this
Yes,
episode.
yes.
Okay, again, another question. Is this a spaghetti noodle?
It is. It's a raw pasta noodle.
Did you see this? I've been looking
I
at
didn't
these.
see it. No.
Yeah, so they've
Why is
got
that
all
a part
sorts
of their
stuff.
diet? Is that just like crunchy for their teeth? Or
Yeah,
is there
so everything we have right now are kind of their treats. It's not like the main part of their diet. So these are some of the things like they run for, they train for, but they love raw pasta. They love dried fruit. We give them different types of pellet that birds like. They will eat almost anything, or at least try it, but they definitely have their preferences. No one likes broccoli. We tried that. That didn't work out, but they'll eat almost any fruit, and it's really fun to give them new things to try. Every once in a while, they get to try things too, like maybe like a cracker or like a pretzel or just something different.
Uh-huh.
And it's really fun because they get so excited over new foods.
Oh yeah, I
That just
bet.
gave me an idea. Have you seen those videos where owners have their dogs trying new foods and they're like
Yes.
sitting at a table?
Yes.
Doing that with the rats.
Can we do that with the rats?
I think we're gonna have to now, especially now because there's a bunch of stuff in season, like produce and stuff coming in that we don't normally get. I think we should try it.
I think we should too.
Because it is really cute. When rats get excited, they do something called boggling, and if you watch, they'll probably do it at some point today, but their eyes look like they're wiggling and like almost gonna bulge out of their head. It sounds weird, but it just means they're really excited.
Boggling.
Yes,
Interesting. I haven't heard that
boggling.
one before.
Mama Pickle does it a lot.
Who is this again?
This is Pixie.
Oh, Pixie.
Yeah, Pixie's
Pixie's
a very
precious.
She
Oh my
is. She's a confident little lady munching on her spaghetti noodle.
We will make sure to share some
She's
videos
eating a
from this
spaghetti noodle like
episode.
corn on the cob right now. Like she's
Yes, they love snacks.
No one can see this, but
Obviously, you're doing the show, day in and day out. I've only attended it a couple of times this year. I only made it to 2 shows this year. So I'm curious to see like what your reaction is on a daily basis. Because the couple shows that I've been to, I think the rats got a really positive reaction from the crowd. Is that typical, or what kind of reaction do the crowd usually give the rats when you see them come out?
Yeah, so most of the time it's pretty positive. Either people are like laughing or like they yell. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, look. Like they just see rats doing,
Being
things that
hooligans.
being hooligans, doing what rats do. So they usually get a really positive reaction, and people usually get really excited when we bring them outside. After the show's done, we bring them out for like meet and greets, so people can get up close and get personal and really see that they're not this big, dirty, gross, scary, biting animal. That they're quite the opposite. So
Yeah.
they usually get a really good reaction. Every once in a while, we might be walking through the zoo and someone might be a little concerned when they see a rat on our shoulder and maybe they're not the biggest fan. But almost every single time, they'll hang around and they'll get closer and closer and closer until they're right there. So it's usually pretty positive, which is awesome.
oh, they all just went and cuddled right now.
That is the cuddle puddle, we call it, and they all get together. Some mornings we come in and they're all like, they have a million different spots they could sleep, but they're all in one, in just this little rat pile, and it's adorable.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I want to get into the. Oh my gosh, I love spooky season, so I'm really excited and I want to talk about them. But I have another question before we get into like these myths and things that Mark is going to tell us about. Why do some of them have red eyes versus black eyes?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. So it's genetics, just like us, just like other
Okay.
animals. It doesn't mean that they're albino or anything like that. You would know if you have an albino rat because they have no melanin anywhere, their fur, anything. But like Fantasia right here, you can clearly see she's got some gray and even a little bit of brown in her fur. So it's just kind of like a little genetic roulette. And then little Cheddar, yes, so if you look, she's extra special. I don't see these very often. Little Cheddar is what we call an odd eye rat. So if you look, she's got one red eye and one black eye. And again, that's a total genetic kind of roulette type thing. So it had to be carried on probably both of her parents' side for her to end up with that. Or at least one of them had to have red eyes at some point. But yeah, she's
is it any
super
indication
cool.
of like their eyesight? Like, is one perceived to have better eyesight than the other?
It's thought that the girls that have the red eyes have a little bit more trouble seeing out in direct sunlight, but we don't really see a difference.
Okay.
I mean, our stage is direct sunlight, and they don't miss. I mean, they always know where they're going, but I can see why they take light into their eyes just a little bit differently than the darker eyed girls. So it can hinder it, but not enough to where we really have to alter anything for them. They get around just fine.
It's just so interesting. I can't think of any other mammal that has red eyes and like how did that come about and all the questions, but it's very interesting to see, and I can imagine that might be something that people see and they're a little like spooked by, and that
Yeah,
could have
for
started
sure.
some of the myths about rats. But I think we've talked a lot about how cute they are, and we'll go on, I'm sure, throughout the episode. But our job today is to convince any of you out there that would maybe run and cry or scream if you saw a rat, that's not necessary, and to learn to appreciate them. So I can't wait to hear about these myths that people have come up with about rats, and for Carrie Ann to debunk them.
Yeah, so we've got our rat expert on here at the zoo to address some of these. These are just some myths that I found through some internet research. Stuff about rats, misconceptions that a lot of people think, unfortunately. So we want to debunk some of these, or who knows, maybe they're factual. Carrie Ann's going to tell us. So let's address some of these. The first one you hear a lot is that rats are unintelligent. They're stupid animals. They live in sewers. Like, you hear a lot of this stuff about rats. Carrie Ann, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the biggest stereotypes, and it honestly couldn't be more far from the truth. I think wherever that started, they did not get up close and personal with a rat, because they are incredibly smart. Anything you can train a dog to do, you can train a rat to do. They have an incredible sense of smell and hearing. Their eyesight is a little bit give or take, but again, they're so social and they're so intelligent. There's actually an organization in Africa who are training a species of rats to sniff out landmines.
That's amazing.
And
Wow.
yeah, so it's helping keeping people safe, and then the rats have a job to do too.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're just incredible. They can know their name. They know the way we sound. They know the way we smell. They can recognize all sorts of different cues.
I actually can see that right now because while they just handed me treats, and we have two young ladies that would rather not be recorded right now, but they're
They're
here
on rat
helping
duty.
wrangle rats, and the rats continuously go to you three and not to us. So they definitely know you guys and know the difference, even though the snacks are in front of me. So
Yeah,
they
and that's
definitely know
what's
their
so
people.
fun. We'll take them on programs and stuff, and we can let them even kind of run around on the ground if it's a safe environment, and let them get as close to people as they want to. Yeah, they will also eat every snack. But they always check in with us. Again, like you just said, they know who we are, they know what we smell like, so it's kind of like a little check-in just to make sure. They are a prey animal in the wild, so they do want to feel safe. And having that ability to let them come back whenever they want just makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating, like, the different behaviors you can train a rat. I think part of it just goes along with, like, I don't know, I think there's misconceptions that just smaller animals aren't as intelligent. You know, you have to be this
Yeah.
big, charismatic animal to have smarts. And rats, even though they're tiny, they are very intelligent. So glad we could debunk that one. The next one we have up is, you know, deals a lot with rats kind of carrying diseases and all this stuff. And you always hear that rats cause the Black Plague to spread. Rats are responsible for the Black Death.
Oh yeah, we hear that a lot. So that is a big myth, ironically. With these guys, you're more likely to get a type of disease spread through a flea that's on their body, the same flea that could get on your cat or dog, than an actual rat. So they don't carry a ton of diseases. They can carry anything any other or mammal, I guess I could say, would carry. But they're actually super clean. So a lot of people think like they're going to get a disease because a rat's dirty or whatever that may be. But if they're not eating or sleeping, they're cleaning themselves. So they're incredibly clean animals.
Where do you think that came from then?
You know, the only thing I can think of is, you know, people talked like when rats would like run on ships that were like coming over to the States or whatever, that is how the disease got over here. Well, it could have been, but it was probably the fleas on the rats that got over here. So I just think that, and then that bad reputation on top of it, they point a finger at that. Because
Right.
rats can be
Yeah.
everywhere too.
Yeah.
So that's probably my best guess on it.
Because it was like, from what I understand at least, it was like centuries that they truly thought rats were responsible for the Black Plague, and it's only more recently in the past few decades that they realized, no, it's probably, like you said, it's
Yes.
fleas or lice or some sort of invertebrate that's actually causing the spread. It wasn't the rats after all, but
Exactly.
that misnomer unfortunately kind of stuck with them. And like you
Yeah.
said, they are so clean. You see them groom a lot. Like, they groom themselves, they groom each other. They're
Constantly. Yeah, you'll probably see them stop after they eat a couple snacks, and they'll use their paws and wipe their face. They'll groom each other. Kiki's like our resident like cosmetologist among the rats. She grooms everybody.
What are their bathroom habits? Like, are they a type of animal that you could litter train?
You can litter train rats, yeah. So with these guys, it's just like your cat or dog at home. You gotta watch for some signs too. Your dog, you know, can be housebroke or, you know, go potty outside. But if you ignore when they tell you, hey, I gotta go, accidents can happen. But with these guys, they can definitely be litter trained. Oh, I know hair is one of their favorite things as well.
They're just checking everything out. I'm distracted right now. I'm sorry. All right. Next, so I'm glad we could debunk that. Rats actually very clean animals. Next one we have up. You hear these, horror stories in New York City that these rats are growing as big as dogs. They're as big as cats in New York City in the subway system. How big do rats actually get? How big are these rats, and what do you think is kind of as big as they could possibly reach?
So these types of rats are called Dumbo rats. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of different types of rats out there. There are like 1,500 types of rodents in the world altogether.
Wow.
They're one of the biggest like mammal collection
Groups,
and
yeah.
groups in the world, which is absolutely crazy. So yes, there are some rats that can get as big as a football. Probably not in New York, though. You probably have to go to a different part of the world for that to happen. But in New York, there's a ton of resources for them to always have food. So when you always have food, you don't have as many predators because you're in the middle of the city. You're probably going to get bigger than your average rat that is running around in the woods somewhere. Football size, though, that's a hard one.
How much do these guys weigh?
They don't weigh that much, so they weigh usually anywhere between 200 and 400 grams, which is like 2 Snicker bars. It's not very much.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's not very much. They're pretty small. Mama Pickle has been our biggest girl for a while, but now Empanada and Luscious kind of taken that title over. And the highest she's weighed, I think, was like 440 grams. They can get a little bit bigger than that, but our girls, they stay pretty busy. They run, they burn a lot of calories, so they're definitely not overweight rats by any stretch.
Yeah, definitely. And I read that the average rat is going to be around 400 grams. So I think
Yeah.
these guys sound like they're kind of right on that track. So no, we don't have any poodle-sized rats running around in New York City, thankfully. Another myth that we have is rats can chew through anything. They destroy stuff. They chew through steel. They chew through their holding areas. Like, do you guys experience that here with these guys? Like, are they escape artists? What's the deal with that?
So I would definitely say they do love to chew things. So since they're rodents, they've got 2 teeth on the top and the bottom and the front of their mouth where they're constantly chewing on stuff. So we have to provide them with a lot of chewing material. However, I've never seen a rat chew through metal, ever. Their teeth are really strong and they have to chew their whole lives to kind of keep those teeth where they're supposed to be. And that's what they're built to do. But chewing out of a metal enclosure or anything like that, that's probably not going to happen. Maybe some wood if you left them alone a long time to do it. But most of the time, if they're chewing, it's for a really specific reason. There's something they want somewhere. But with these guys, they're not going to be able to escape somewhere that they're not supposed to. That is metal.
Speaking of their teeth, so we've mentioned a few things that you guys give them as their treats, but do they have a natural diet? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to know because rats will eat kind of whatever they can find.
Yeah.
Is there way back in the day that you would know that's a natural diet? What's the healthiest diet for these guys?
Yeah. So
And also, what kind of enrichment do you give them?
enrichment with rats is so fun.
bet.
As far as their diet goes, so these ladies get a different fruit and veggie mix every single day, and then a rodent pellet that's made for them that's just kind of got anything that may be missing in that fruit or veggie vitamin wise for that day. But they're opportunistic eaters, so most of the time they're herbivores and they'll stick to mostly plants or anything like that. But they do have the occasional bug. They also like to make mischief. Mama Pickle, for example, she loves mealworms. That's one of her favorites.
Oh.
So if that's what's in the area and that's what's easiest to get to, they will eat that.
Okay.
But most of the time, again, it's whatever easiest for a rat. They can eat pretty much anything that they want to. But with these girls, they get a big variety, and we even have a chart of things they like and don't like. So we can make sure that they're getting things that they like every day. But yeah, I think, as far as I've ever seen any history of rats, what is the easiest to get to is what they're going to eat.
Okay.
And you mentioned they're incisors. They're never going to stop growing. They grow their whole lives. Do you guys give them specific items to chew on to kind of trim those incisors back?
Yeah, so they always have access to like wood and cardboard, sticks, things like that to chew on. And really we just kind of keep an eye. It's pretty obvious if their teeth start to get overgrown. Luckily that hasn't been a problem with these girls. But if it does become a problem, we'll just give them harder textures to chew. Instead of like softwood, they'll get hardwood.
Okay.
Or different things like that. But they do a really good job wearing it down themselves. So we almost never have to worry about that. But they will continue to grow their whole life, just like your fingernails.
And then what about enrichment? Like, what are some of their favorite enrichment items?
Everything. That's why they're so fun to enrich, because they will investigate almost anything. We'll order those cat scratch boxes and stuff that people get around Halloween. They're like a little mansion and stuff. We got one of those last year. They love it. Any box, as creative as you can get with making something for them, they will check it out. They love anything that is scent oriented, so we'll get different perfumes or oils or spices to put in their house for them to check out. They love clothing that we've worn, so we'll have old uniforms that we, maybe just had their day. And we'll put it in there and they'll make a nest. They'll make a bed out of it. They are literally the most fun thing to enrich because they will try anything.
That's so fun.
It looks like it's nap time for our rats right now. 'Cause
We
they
do
just
take a
all
lot
went into
of
their pouch.
Maybe it's good for us. We'll get back out at the end. We can focus more.
Yeah, they definitely nap throughout the day. A lot of rats are nocturnal, so during this part of the day, they would be asleep. These girls, their schedule's a little bit more reversed since we're here during the day. That's when all the activity is, so they're up with us.
That makes sense. So, last myth we have here is people are starting to fear that some of these big cities, they're just going to be overrun with rats. Like, rats are going to be everywhere. We're not going to be able to use some areas of the city because there's going to be too many rats. Do you think that's a logical fear to have, or is that something we don't need to worry about?
Well, it sounds like a good plot for a movie, but probably not going to happen. So even areas like New York, you kind of brought up, where there's not a ton of natural predators for rats, there's still that competition of resources. And even in places where there's a lot, they're usually not welcome in a lot of places. So as long as people don't make it too easy, I do not see any world domination rat plagues taking over. They do breed really quick, but they also don't live very long.
I was just going to say, could you talk about the reproduction rate? Like, because that's probably part of the issue, right? Is when people imagine rats being everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it too. So a female rat, a healthy female rat, can have 12 litters a year.
Wow.
Their gestation's really short. It's like 21 to 23 days.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And they can have like 15 babies at once, which is a lot. But again, if you don't have enough resources right in that immediate area, also when you're young, if you're a slower rat, usually that's when a predator is going to pick you off too. So yes, they can reproduce really high. But again, I don't see any city being dominated by rats anytime soon.
As a prey animal, that makes sense that you would have a lot of babies often because you don't know how many would survive. So I'm sure that's part of their survival skills is having a lot of babies really, really rapidly. But I mean, talking about like how they might scare people or be an issue of overrunning a city, like, it could be these girls are really well socialized with humans, but like no part of me has ever felt nervous that they're going to bite me. Is that common? Have you ever had a rat that like bites people or?
So our rats, obviously, they're really socialized, and we like never have a problem with that. One day, Emily did have a French fry hand, and so a rat did definitely want to take her finger and lick it and taste it and see if they could get a French fry. But luckily, other than that, these girls are
That was
amazing
just
about
taste
it.
testing.
That was
It
taste
was-
testing. I'm like, we don't even consider it a bite.
Yeah.
She didn't break the skin, just literally was like, I need to see what this is for
Yeah.
a minute. But with rats, biting is their last defense. So unless you have got one and scared and you've grabbed it or something like that, that's the only time you're really going to get bit. They're not going to run after and bite something that's just not in their nature to do. First thing with rats is escape. Get away,
Yeah.
escape. That's why they're fast. They can squeeze into really small places. But biting, again, you're going to have to be really up in that rat's space for that to happen. And even then, very, very last resort.
It's so interesting because, I mean, these myths are all pretty wild. Like, big picture, like, reasons to be afraid of rats. Like, do you think maybe, I'm trying to think of other reasons people might be afraid of them because they're so cute when I look at them, but maybe like the naked tail thing, or have you heard people throughout meeting people with the rats,
Yeah.
like, why they're afraid of them, and have you convinced anybody to not be afraid of them after like a 10-minute conversation?
Oh, we've definitely had some rat believers swap into our territory, which has been great. But I think, from what I hear and what makes sense to me, you know, a lot of these rats, they're nocturnal, like we're talking about. So when you see them, it's dark, it's at night, they're probably surprising you. Also, most people who do end up seeing rats, maybe it's where they don't want them, in their garage, in their house, mouse, whatever it may be. So of course nobody likes being surprised by something in their house that they weren't expecting. So I think based on that, and then again, they're active at night, and they're really good at finding easy food sources. So if you don't close your cereal box or close your Tupperware lid and there's a mouse in your house, they're going to go get that easy food source. So I think that is probably a couple reasons why people are so nervous about them.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but I think that that nocturnal aspect probably does have a lot to do with it. You know, you're on the sidewalk and it's really dimly lit and something just scurries across the path in front of you. You're like, what was that? Probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, a squirrel does that during the day and people think it's cute, but at night, which is also a rodent, but at night, if that happens with a rat, it's scary. So, just a few glowing differences.
Definitely. I'm glad we could debunk some of these. In summation here, rats are not stupid.
Not at all.
Actually very intelligent animals. Rats aren't dirty. They're very clean. they can theoretically spread disease, but in reality, they aren't known to spread that many diseases. We don't need to worry about cat or dog-sized rats anywhere that we live, at least. Rats cannot chew through anything. They do have those incisors that continually grow, but typically just wood and other items like that you have to worry about, not metal. And we don't need to worry about rats overrunning our city anytime soon. Honestly, though, with them playing around on this table, maybe we should have rats run over our city.
They're a great cleanup crew. If you've noticed, they do a great job at picking up stray crumbs.
Yes. No, honestly, I've never seen a rat like in the wild. I mean, or not in the
out?
zoo. Yeah, not. We're supposed.
Not in Cincinnati, no. I've seen some in other cities, but I've never seen one in Cincinnati, at least.
Yeah, you're definitely more likely to see some mice probably running around than a rat around here. But it could happen. Oh, I know you have to check out
Do you have anything else about rats that you want to make sure we're sharing with people? Any fun facts or anything you want to tell us about these specific ladies?
Yeah, so again, I think it is really important for us to have rats like this in our program because guests can meet them any day of the week. We take these guys on walks all the time. We take them to schools, all that. Like, it's their job for people to get to be up close and check these guys out. So if you do happen to see them around the zoo, please come up. Say hi. Even if they make you nervous, we're not going to scare you with them. We're not going to jump scare you or anything like that. Just come up and meet them and learn a little bit about them because they are so smart and so social. It's why they're so near and dear to our hearts, I think, in our program. And we love getting to share them with people.
I think it's got to be a really cool experience for you guys to be able to kind of turn that stigma around, right? Like, that's got to be really rewarding because I think of some of the most fun parts of our job is to kind of educate the public and deal with some of this stuff. And especially for a species that does have a lot of misconceptions that we've talked about. Like, how rewarding is it for you guys to be able to, after the show, you take the rats out and people are actually excited to see them? That's going to be fun, right?
It is so fun. And we have people who, they see the show a couple times throughout the year or they've caught us walking around the zoo and they know them by name.
Oh, that's
if
awesome.
you ask any zoo teen in the zoo who Mama Pickle is, they know. So again, I think that's what is so cool is, they are so personable, and when people get to meet an individual and they learn their name, and it's an animal that they didn't know anything about or just had really bad assumptions about, and then it flips, like you just see the light go off with them, and it is so cool. It is so cool. And then you hear people, their kids will be like, "Oh, I want a rat for a pet," and there's not a lot of animals at the zoo I recommend as pets, but rats actually can make really good pets. They don't live very long, so it's a shorter commitment. But they're so smart and so sociable, and they have a lot of love to give in that time. So it's nice to see that spark kind of light off with the guests.
Definitely. I've always been so pleasantly surprised when I do go to the show and I see people get excited because, like you said, I think a lot of people unfortunately do think they can be a little bit creepy. So when you see kids laughing and having a good time with the rats, it always kind of warms my heart. I'm
yeah,
like,
it is
hope,
the best.
There's hope.
There is. It is the best, and I think even just them seeing us walk out and the rats are with us, that immediately clicks something why I thought this animal bites and is dirty, but why are you holding it to your chest? So I think that even just sets the playing field up right away. And then some of these girls they want to go see the people, so if they're comfortable, we'll let them go over to the kids. The kids get to hold them. They get that invaluable experience.
I think it's really smart, the naming too. If you give something a cute name, it's hard not to remember it.
Not that Dave the rat wouldn't be cute, but
it's less memorable.
Empanada
makes less of an impression for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Mark, do you have rat trivia for us?
I do have some fun trivia for you
Okay.
all today. If you're up for it, Karian, to humor us.
Let's try it.
All right, these are mostly just kind of some random fun questions here. But Jenna, anytime we have an episode like this, the first question that's probably coming. This is a tricky question because rat is not a scientific term. But how many rat species are there in the world? Not rodents. Karian mentioned the rodent animal earlier. Not rodents, but rats in particular. There's a little bit of leeway to this because depending on your definition of rat versus mouse, you might get a couple different answers. So I'll take a range.
Wait,
for this
do you know the definition of a rat versus mouse? Or did you learn that on your...
No, I don't. Well, I could have some educated guesses, but
It seems like there is a little bit of like disagreement within the scientific community about like what exactly makes it a mouse versus a rat. There's some disagreement there, so I don't know if there is like an accepted definition,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's whoever finds it first, and that's what they call it. That's what it is.
It's not like size related or anything.
No, I don't think so because
Okay.
there's some rats that are smaller than some mice species.
really?
Yeah,
Is that in trivia?
Yeah.
What's one of those species? I'm gonna look it up.
I don't have that in front of me,
Okay.
but we can find it out.
Little
I
teeny
need to
rat
know.
species. Okay, so how many rat species
Yeah.
are there is the question.
I actually don't know, but based on the species I do know, I'm gonna guess it's still a pretty high number. I'm gonna say like 200.
200, Jenna, you got a guess?
I'll say 137.
Well, you guys are actually both a little bit high on this
Okay.
one.
Oh darn.
So, somewhere between like 55 and 75
okay,
species.
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
We're really high.
I was being hopeful.
So, about 55, 75, somewhere in that range of number of rat species out there. Next question, Carrie Ann actually mentioned it during our chat today,
Oh,
so I'm going to
boy.
let Jenna answer this one. What is a group of rats called?
A mischief.
A mischief.
It's so
Yeah, I just
fun.
learned that one. I know. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah,
but-
it's the best. It's one of my favorite animal groupings.
A mischief, and I think mischief is a good phrase because like it doesn't have negative connotation to it, and they are a little bit mischievous. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Just checking things
Oh
out.
yeah.
All right, next up, we got some fun questions just about to kind of portray rats in a positive light, about some fun and interesting rats in my life, and I'm sure in your lives as well. One of my favorite movies, Ratatouille.
Just wonder where you're
If
going.
you,
with this.
Pixar movie, and in this movie, the main character is a rat who is a gourmet chef in Paris. Do you know what the rat's name is?
Remy.
Yes.
Remy, you got it. You got it. And if you haven't seen Ratatouille, you got to check it out. Like it'll tug at your heartstrings like
It's
any
pretty
Pixar
cute.
movie. But this one, not really a rat, but a rodent. Mickey Mouse. Everyone knows Mickey Mouse. What year was Mickey Mouse created?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we've done enough like Disney trivia in our office that I should know this.
Steamboat Willie. What year was Mickey Mouse created?
I'm so bad at this stuff. You know that.
1914. I have no clue. That's my guess.
1914. Okay.
I feel
Jenna?
like it's
Is it older than that?
well, I don't know, because Disney, they had like a 100-year anniversary of something, but I don't know what it was.
When
Park.
did TV start? I don't even know that. When were cartoons made?
I'm probably guessing way too early. Now that I'm thinking about it.
1907.
You guys are both a little bit early.
Darn it.
Mickey Mouse created in 1928. You're not that far
Okay,
off. You're
not
just
too
like
bad.
10 or
Yeah.
12
We'll
years
take it.
off.
We'll
Yeah.
take it.
Mickey Mouse created in 1928 with Steamboat Willie. All right, last question. This might be my favorite rat ever portrayed.
I'm so sorry. I have to go
It's-
back.
No, yeah, please.
Some like the old Mickey Mouse things were kind of creepy,
Scary.
and I wonder if it's Mickey. It's I shouldn't say this out loud. It's Walt's fault.
It's
Mickey's fault.
It all stems back.
Disney's gonna come for you.
I know,
Jenna.
right?
You better be careful.
I love Disney, so they don't want to be mad at me.
I mean, I've seen some of those old Mickey mascots,
Yeah.
and they are not
The-
the
yeah,
most
the-
welcoming looking.
Some of those original animations are a little bit odd.
Yeah.
Like the
they're not kid friendly. That's
the
for
dimensions
sure.
are kind of off. Yeah, he's not
But
really
even
like
like
smiley.
the storyline, I feel like is adultish. Anyways, sorry. Who's your favorite rat?
Not that one.
Probably my favorite rat in all of movie or
Wait, can I
cinema.
guess?
Yeah, please do.
Is it Splinter?
I knew it! I didn't even need to ask the question.
what was the
Jenna, tell us who Splinter is.
Master Splinter?
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And like when I was thinking about it, I was like, maybe Splinter's the reason that people think rats get giant. Because he was like a
Oh.
giant sewer rat in New
True.
York City.
Oh, I bet sewers
You know
don't
what I
help
mean?
their
Yeah,
case
like-
either. They live in sewer. Is that true? They live in sewers?
They will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy way for them to get around safely.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, maybe Splinter's responsible for some of that, but like, I would like to think Splinter would also be responsible for people thinking rats were cool, right? Because Splinter was awesome.
What was your question?
It was just gonna be who's the master of the Ninja
Oh,
Turtles?
okay.
Yeah, who was the trainer and master of the Ninja Turtles? Yeah, Splinter, martial arts legend for sure.
I agree.
That's all I got though, Carrie Ann. Thanks for humoring me with
was
my
great.
trivia today.
Oh my goodness.
Jenna, do we have anything else for Carrie Ann while we have her?
All right, I have my final question. Unless there's anything else you want to add about rats in general.
I probably could go on for a while, so.
Well, like we always do, we want to end every episode with a what can I do? So what is something that people can do to be a better steward of the earth? It can be rat related or not. Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, so I do like to try to tie something back to our ratty friends because a lot of people do find themselves in a situation where they've got mice or rats in their house, and obviously nobody wants that. So there's a couple things you can do to kind of help prevent that. One is just to make sure your house isn't an easy target. Just make sure like all your food is kept, your Tupperware lids are closed. Don't leave anything obviously out that anyone could get into because again, for a rat, they're prey item. They just want to get an easy meal and get out of there. Also, just making sure that it's not easy to get into your house. Make sure you don't have any holes in your basement or, I don't know, a crack in your garage that leads to your kitchen or anything like that. Just kind of being vigilant about that stuff will deter 90% of those mice or rats that may be trying to get into your house because it's not easy to do. And then the last thing, these guys are a really important part of the ecosystem. So doing things like setting up like bat boxes or owl boxes, anything like that in your yard that kind of invites in those natural predators, it's going to keep them away. Even just setting up a garden that'll invite in like maybe some local like black rat snakes or things like that too. They can be great as well. But if you do find a mouse or a rat nearby, they're probably eating some bugs you don't want in your house either. So it's give and take.
I never would have thought of that, honestly, about them eating bugs. So basically, the best way to help keep mice, rodents, rats out of your home is to just be vigilant and do things ahead of time. I don't know if vigilance is the right word. Preventative.
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 And
then it's your neighbor's problem.
there you go. Yes. But it seems like, do they use their nose mostly to find food? Because as I'm watching them find snacks, it seems like they're sniffing around, and that would make the most sense where they would want to sneak into, or not sneak into, that makes them sound spooky. Come into a home looking for food. Are they using their noses to do that mostly?
They sure are. So their scent and their hearing are their best senses. And if you look at these girls, their noses never stop wiggling. Even when they're sleeping, they're wiggling to a degree. So yeah, they follow their nose. Even like some of the snacks that they've got around, you'll see they'll go right to it. But if it's something they don't like, they'll pass on it and they'll sniff out the really sweet snack that they want instead. So yeah, definitely use their nose to find what they want.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, you didn't need to convince us.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we convinced a few others.
Yes, and if our podcast listening can't convince somebody they don't need to be afraid, then I think these videos that we might be able to share, I'm sure you have some really good ones over time. Maybe
yes.
you can share with
Definitely.
the PR team and Angela. We will show you guys just how cute they are. Oh, wait, I have another question.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you're going to think of a rat as like a dark brown or black. Is that just a different species? Because most of these ladies are lighter in color. There's, a few that are a little bit more brown or darker. And I could see how the darker color would make them a little spookier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So with most rats, a lot of them, they're kind of like little subbreeds off of each other. So like a Norwegian rat, like the rats that climbed on the ships and came over here, they're usually those big dark rats. So a lot of them do kind of stem from that. But, as they breed very prolifically, all those little genetic traits start getting mixed up. And then you get like the rats that have the little patches or that are all gray, all white. So I could see how the darker ones could be a little bit more scary. But again, it's kind of a genetic roulette.
So in the wild, you could find.
You definitely could.
I don't know. The wild seems
like the wild does sound weird, but there's rats all over the world in different spots and
in
different
different
types.
cities. Like a city rat, you could find in one of these like almost marbled colors, or
you could.
is that
I think it would be a little less common only because if you are a rat that is this like marbled gray and white versus a rat that's like dark brown. This rat, the lighter color rat's probably going to get spotted by a predator first.
That makes
so
sense.
it probably naturally gets selected out that way. But with zoos who breed rats or people who have rats, they don't have to worry about that. So that's kind of how we get more of a little rainbow assortment of our ratty friends.
That makes total sense. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for bringing the rats with you.
Yeah, this is such a fun show. We always love having some animals in here with us while we're recording. Even though we may have been distracted, it was worth it.
It definitely is worth it. They're the best office buddies. They're quiet and sweet and wonderful.
Yes.
So They are great podcast buddies.
Not so spooky, but I love spooky season. You can't argue that this weather this weekend wasn't amazing.
I'm ready.
It's
I'm
not
very
for me.
aggressive. I'm very aggressive at Mark right
It's
now.
not for me, you know.
No?
It's the to each their own. I'm glad that you're loving it and you're happy with it.
See,
but like,
August
it's just not for me.
4th is spooky season.
August 4th?
August 4th, because my birthday is the 3rd, so August 4th is Halloween. And that's where we go.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, Halloween for me doesn't start until October. I'm trying to
I
go
have
as
to
long as
prepare.
I
I have to be
can.
ready by October with like the full force. Like I need my 12-foot skeleton in my front yard by mid-September at the latest.
I mean, I can handle it if you don't want to start Halloween until October, but I just don't know how 70 degrees and sunny isn't your jam.
I'd take 80.
Okay.
80 or 85. Yeah, that's for me.
I'm gonna go with the rats. They'll take 70. They love the cooler temps. They do great. But fall is a perfect time for rats. There's so much fun stuff for them to get into. And pumpkins. They love pumpkins.
Oh yeah, some
All
pictures
kinds of
with them
treats
in
coming
pumpkins.
up.
All
Yeah.
sorts of treats. And then
That's
just
fun to
things
gnaw on, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then things just smell around the zoo, just like the leaves falling and the plants changing and all that. It's a blast for these guys. So I'm excited. I'm ready.
Well, thanks again. Thanks everyone for listening. We hope you have a great day.
Yeah, until next time, take care, everyone.